A wonderful morning to everyone who's joined today's training session. On behalf of the entire ManageEngine family, I would like to thank our customers, partners, and users who have connected today against all odds. Let me introduce myself. I'm Pavitra, a product specialist with ManageEngine. I'll be your trainer for today's session. First things first, I hope you're all keeping well and taking all the necessary precautions to stay safe. We at ManageEngine have been working remotely for over a month now, just like so many of you out there. In fact, I am hosting this webinar from my home. That being said, I request you all to bear with me and let me know in case you experience any audio glitches during the session. Also, for today, we have panel members who'd be happy to help you during the course of this presentation. If you have any questions, please keep them coming our way. Welcome to Desktop Central Free Training Program. Since we're all working from home, today's session is aligned with work from home and the multiple scenarios associated with it. We're currently in the third week of this training program for asset management. We've completed 2 sessions and 2 more sessions are in the pipeline. If you would like to access the past sessions or register for the future ones, kindly visit the link provided. Now, asset management is indispensable to every organization because it contributes to the fundamental principle of every business. In other terms, the bedrock of every organization is asset management. Managing IT assets now is more important than ever given the current work from home scenario. Now, besides managing IT assets, John, the IT administrator, is tasked with managing and securing work from home endpoints. The primary step in embracing work from home is to identify all the endpoints used by employees for remote work. An unmanaged remote endpoint is the last thing every IT administrator would want because an unpatched system opens your network to a plethora of cyber attacks and provides the leeway for users to install malicious applications or uninstall business-critical applications. Besides the local office, most enterprises will have 1 or more remote offices to manage as well. Now, looking at John's network, we have our head office at Dallas, while we have 3 remote offices at Bogota, London, and Chennai with varying bandwidths. Also, we have roaming users stationed at Sydney. This is quite the remote work scenario for John to handle. Let's quickly dive into today's agenda. And for today's presentation, we would be using Desktop Central Server version build 10.0.502. We'll start off by discussing the overview of Desktop Central. And today's session will be in the form of scenarios followed by their solutions, wherein we have 3 scenarios of identifying work from home endpoints, controlling applications, and locking down the corporate endpoints. We'll wrap it up by discussing about Desktop Central's architecture, a few common scenarios that our support team has faced, and frequently asked questions. So what is Desktop Central? Desktop Central is a unified endpoint management solution that helps you in managing your desktops, your laptops, your mobile devices, your tablets, servers, point-of-sale devices, and browsers from a single console. This will empower your employees to efficiently use all of these endpoints for business operations. Forrester, a popular research analyst, defines UEM as the market with products that provide a centralized policy for managing and securing employee laptops and mobile devices from a single console. In unified endpoint management, You can manage endpoints in a traditional IT management, which includes patch management, application management, configuration deployment, asset management, remote control, OS deployment, and tools for troubleshooting. On the other hand, with modern management, one will be able to support features such as geo-tracking, geofencing, managing store applications, profile distribution to enforce restrictions, operating system reset, and recovery. Windows 10 is a classic example of managing both traditional and modern management. Now, Desktop Central helps you in managing endpoints the traditional way and the modern way. That's what UEM edition is all about. On one particular endpoint, you can perform traditional client management functionalities, mobile device management capabilities, OS imaging and deployment, in addition to modern management capabilities for Windows 10 and Mac OS missions. This is the feature illustration of Desktop Central, pretty much a summary of all that we've been discussing so far. On one side, you have all the traditional management capabilities, while on the other side, you have mobile management capabilities and modern management capabilities. For UEM, Desktop Central has been recognized by Gartner. We have been recognized by Gartner for over 5 years in a row now, thrice for client management tools and twice for unified endpoint management tools. As of today, Desktop Central has won the award for Peer Insights Customer's Choice Award for UEM tools by Gartner. That said, let's move on to the components of Desktop Central. On one side, we have the essential components for Desktop Central, while on the other side, we have optional components. Now let us discuss each component one by one. Desktop Central server has to be installed in one of your computers in the head office. Since Desktop Central is based on a client-server model, wherein the agents need to be installed on the computers that you wish to manage using Desktop Central, server and agent are the essential components. Notification server comes to rescue when you have an on-demand task to be performed and you want the agent to pick and execute the task immediately. The optional components include distribution server, secure gateway server, failover server, and the language pack. Distribution server is installed in branch offices and to a great extent helps in the optimization of bandwidth. In this case, the distribution server contacts Desktop Central server instead of the agents contacting the central server directly. Here's a quick example. Let's say you have a patch of size 20 MB that needs to be deployed on all the endpoints. Instead of each agent replicating this patch binary, the distribution server will replicate it from the central server just once and will distribute it internally within the branch office. This reduces the load on our central server. Secure gateway server is another quintessential component when it comes to securing Desktop Central server. For roaming users to be able to contact Desktop Central server, it is important to configure it as an edge device. Instead of exposing Desktop Central server directly, you can use our SDS component to route all the communication from roaming users. This way, any communication from roaming users will pass through Secure Gateway server and then on to Desktop Central server. This is particularly more important now, considering the work from home scenario where multiple remote endpoints connect to Desktop Central server over the internet. The next component is failover server, which is a standby server that works in close proximity with the primary server. If and when the primary server fails, the secondary server will take over the responsibilities of the primary server to ensure continuity in the agent-server communication. Finally, Desktop Central supports multiple languages and you can personalize the console depending on your choice of language with the language pack. Desktop Central supports three major flavors of operating systems, namely Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. On the screen, you would be able to find the different versions of each operating system that we support. To get started with Desktop Central, the first step would be to install the server and agents. Here's how you can facilitate agent installation. Number one, by leveraging the GPU, you can simply download the application and push it using a GPU. Number two, you can install agents automatically by adding domains or workgroups and roll out the agents to them from the console, which will invoke installation automatically. And number three, we also have scripts that you can use to install the agent. Alternatively, you can download the agent manually and execute the setup directly on the machine. We'll be talking about agent installation in detail in our upcoming training sessions. If you are interested, please subscribe to the upcoming training sessions. So today's topic, asset management. Why do enterprises need asset management and why are we emphasizing more on the importance of asset management during remote work? Just like I started this session by saying, IT assets are the bedrock of any organization. They are also vital for the productivity and security of business operations. Enterprises need a centralized and automated IT management software to keep a track of all the hardware and software inventory, because you cannot manage what you cannot measure. In addition, it is also important to stay compliant at all times with respect to software licenses and optimize the usage of such licenses to make informed purchase decisions. Life of an IT administrator would be a lot easier if over 30 predefined reports can be scheduled and generated automatically for audit purposes. How does inventory scanning work? Now we spoke about installation of Desktop Central agents. After the installation, the agent would post the entire inventory data back to the server. Now this data would be pertaining to that particular endpoint. For all the subsequent scans, the agent would post only the differential data, as in difference in the inventory information with respect to the complete scan details posted during the first scan. This way, when only the difference data is what is posted back to the server, the load on Desktop Central server is reduced to a greater extent. During such asset scans, what kind of asset data is collected? We collect data pertaining to hardware inventory, software inventory, driver details, the certificate details, security details, USB device usage details, the user logon details, which I think is particularly important for monitoring the productivity of employees during work from home scenario, and the geolocation. There's also a lot more data that is collected besides these. I will take you to the console during the upcoming slides and show you in detail. Let's get back to today's work from home scenario. The first step is to identify all the endpoints that are working remotely and ensuring that all these endpoints are managed by Desktop Central. Because like I said, an unmanaged remote system is the last thing that every IT administrator would want. This will wreak havoc on your network, thereby compromising the security and raising compliance-related issues. For Desktop Central agents to communicate with the server, all your remote endpoints should be able to access the network. If they can access the network through VPN at all times without encountering any technical hindrances, the communication with Desktop Central server or the distribution server will not be an issue. But If they are connected over the internet, it is recommended to use Secure Gateway Server like we discussed in our previous slides. I would also like to inform you all that currently we're offering free licenses for Secure Gateway Server component for the first 30 days and will extend it on a case-by-case model. Let's see how one can manage work-from-home endpoints. To explain things in a better fashion, here is a simplified tabular column. If you already have a Secure Gateway Server configured, communication of the LAN agents and the roaming users will not be an issue because the IP address of the Secure Gateway Server is already available to all the agents. In case of branch office agents, you will have to make them as roaming users. Before configuring them as roaming users, it is always better to export the branch office details because once the dust settles down with work from home, you always need a restore point to get back. Let me show how that is done. Now, one other information I would like to add. Towards the end of this webinar, we would share the slide deck and also a detailed documentation that has all the necessary scripts and the queries that you need for managing and identifying work from homes. So please do not worry about the queries that I use for demonstration purposes. You will definitely get access to all of this. Let me take you to the product. The first step is to execute a query and export the branch office details. Click on Reports and click on Query Reports. You'll have to create a new query report. Provide a report name saying branch office details. I would like to export the details of my London branch office. And here is my query. Just copy and paste the query. All you have to do is run this report. When you run this report, you will have all the complete branch office details that are exported. Now that you've created a restore point for yourself, you will have to configure the remote office agents as roaming users. Here's how you can do it. Taking you back to the console, click on Admin tab, and under SOM settings, you will have to navigate to Scope of Management. You can see several tabs over here. Select the Remote Office tab, and you can see multiple remote offices. Now I'll just show you one quick method of changing the communication type. When you add a remote office, it will ask you for the communication type. If you want the branch office agents to communicate through distribution server or directly. So in this case, the remote office agents would communicate through distribution server. But in order to configure them as roaming agents, you will have to change the communication type from through distribution server to direct communication. That is all you have to do. So this will help you in configuring your remote office agents as roaming users. We have covered the first part of it if you've already configured Secure Gateway Server. Let's say you are newly configuring Secure Gateway Server. Now in this case, here's what will happen. After the installation and configuration of Secure Gateway Server, if the same public IP address as that of Desktop Central is provided for Secure Gateway Server, there would be no issues in the agent-server communication. However, if you choose to provide a different IP address, ensure that all the agents communicate with the Desktop Central server for fetching the new IP address, until which the Desktop Central server should be configured as an edge device. Now please note that all the active agents will contact Desktop Central server within the 90-minute refresh policy. We would be discussing about the refresh policy in detail in our forthcoming slides. But if your work from home agents cannot contact Desktop Central server to fetch the IP address of Secure Gateway Server, you can simply execute a script and upgrade the IP address of Secure Gateway servers. So the script would be available from this document. Let's say, for example, you have different scripts for Windows, Mac, and Linux. So you'll have to download the script for Windows. My operating system is Windows, so I would download the script for Windows. And you have to modify the server details. Let me show you where you have to modify the server details. So in two particular places, you will have something that says provide the IP address here. It is in these places you will have to replace it with the IP address of Secure Gateway Server. That said, you will be able to update the new IP address to all the Desktop Central agents. For remote office agents, you will have one additional step wherein you'll have to configure them as roaming users. I just showed you the steps that you have to follow for configuring branch office agents as roaming users. Now, by doing so, all the remote office endpoints will start contacting the Desktop Central server directly instead of communicating through the distribution server. This will increase the load on Central server and cause bandwidth bottleneck issues. Please ensure that you take precautionary measures to optimize the bandwidth. We have also attached the best practices to avoid bandwidth bottleneck issues. Moving on, we have ensured that all the work from home endpoints are managed. Now, the next step would be to identify work from home endpoints for easier management. For identification, let's talk about two cases, one with the presence of distribution server and the other without distribution server or direct communication with Desktop Central server. Since it is not recommended to configure your distribution server as an edge device, distribution server might not be accessible by all the remote endpoints. However, it's possible for all the endpoints to contact Desktop Central server and not the distribution server. That said, depending on when Desktop Central server and distribution server were contacted, you can identify the work from home endpoints. Here is a quick query that you'll have to execute. Taking you to the product, click on reports and create a new query reports. Now this query report is to identify my work from home endpoints. So let me just provide a report name, and the query that I have to use is this one. So just copy and paste the query. If you can notice, there are two parameters that say current time in millisecond. Now the current time in millisecond has to be fetched from epoch converter. So this is the epoch converter, and let's just say, let me copy and paste this over here. So once you have the current time in milliseconds, two other parameters that you have to consider is the last DS contact time and the last contact time. Now the last DS contact time is the last time your distribution server was contacted, and the last contact time is the last time your Desktop Central server was contacted. Depending on the communication interval that prevails in your network, choose the last contacted time appropriately, fetch the current time from the epoch converter, and execute this query. For example, if you think an endpoint should have contacted distribution server within 2 days and the Desktop Central server within a day, then this should be the query. So we have also provided the corresponding values in the document. Please do not worry, you can refer the document for all the necessary numerical values. From the results of this report, you will be able to determine the last time Desktop Central server was communicated as opposed to the last time distribution server was communicated. If the last contacted time of Desktop Central server is lesser than the last contacted time of distribution server, then it is a work from home endpoint. Let me explain this with a clear example. If an endpoint has contacted distribution server 2 days earlier, but has contacted Desktop Central server 24 hours earlier, then this endpoint is a work from home endpoint. This is how you identify work from home endpoints that communicate through a distribution server. The next case is without a distribution server. If the endpoints communicate with Desktop Central Server directly, a custom script needs to be executed to find if the remote endpoint has communicated with the public IP address of Desktop Central or the private IP address of Desktop Central. If the endpoint has communicated with the public IP address of Desktop Central, then it is a work from home endpoint. Very quickly, you will also have a script provided in the document. Click on configurations. You have to create a custom script configuration. So click on the Windows configuration. You will be displayed with all the configurations supported in Desktop Central. So right now I'll have to execute a custom script. Create a computer custom script configuration. And let's just give it a name saying work from home configuration. I have to execute the script from the repository. I have already uploaded the work from home script to my script repository. As you can see, I have the batch file, the script for identifying work from home endpoints. The script arguments that need to be passed are that of the secure gateway server's IP address. So that should be the script argument. You can define the targets and execute this configuration. Once you have executed this configuration, there's one small query that you have to execute, for which again, I would help you in creating a new query report. And the query that you'll have to post is right here. So I'm again giving it a name for the remote endpoints. You can notice something in the last line along the lines of config name. So in the place of config name, you have to provide the configuration name that you have provided while creating the custom script configuration, which was work from home script. Once you've done that, you can run the report and you can identify all the work from home endpoints. So if you have any questions pertaining to the management and identification of work from home endpoints, please do not hesitate to post them. Our expert panel would be happy to help you. Moving on to the next scenario, just like how the bedrock of every organization is an endpoint, the bedrock of every endpoint is an application. Applications are an inevitable part of our lives, which makes it extremely important to manage, secure, and control the usage of business critical applications. I would like to explain three concepts pertaining to application control, which is blacklisting, whitelisting, and graylisting. Graylisting is the process of identifying and listing the applications that are yet to be included in either a whitelist or a blacklist. Applications that are neither critical to the business nor threaten security are often omitted from whitelist and blacklist without any policy being applied to them. Such applications are known as grey list applications. Application blacklisting, as you all would know, is a technique used to prevent certain applications or executables from running in a network. Application whitelisting is the process of creating a list of trusted applications and allowing only these apps to run on managed devices. Traditional application whitelisting comes with the hassle of a list management, which is why enterprises usually shy away from it, and they rather opt for antivirus solutions to prevent malware intrusions to applications. But unlike the typical antivirus software, here is how you can take a proactive measure with respect to controlling applications and restricting non-business applications. The first step in any application control is discovery of the applications. Let me take you to the product. You will have a tab that says App Control. So the first step in application control process is discovery of which applications are running in the network. Now, after the asset scan is performed, all the applications present on one particular endpoint will be listed. The second step is to group these applications in order to whitelist them or blacklist them. So under application groups, click on create to create one whitelist application group. These are the various policies that you can use to whitelist your application. Now, let me explain one thing to you. As opposed to the traditional methods of enlisting the software per se and then whitelisting it, all that you have to do here is define the criteria, and any application that meets this criteria will automatically be a part of your whitelist or your blacklist or your gray listed applications. The criteria that you can configure is a vendor, product name, verified executables, file hash, folder path, and you can define, best of all, you can define a custom rule. Now, I would like to whitelist any application based on the trusted vendors of my organization. Let's say I trust Dell, and I also trust, since I work in Zoho, I trust any applications from Zoho as well. So click on Show Summary, and you have to create a group. Now, this application group is created with the criteria that any application that falls under Dell or Zoho will be whitelisted. The next step is to deploy a policy. So after grouping the application whitelist will be created, and automatically, according to the associated policies, the corresponding corrective action will take place. Custom groups, you can choose the target to be deployed for the policy to be deployed. The custom group that I'm choosing here will be patch TA, something that's already created. And I will associate the application group that I have just created, which is whitelist 826. You can give it a name. So for this policy that I'm defining, this is the group that I'm associating it with. We have two modes, which is the high flexibility or monitor mode and low flexibility or strict mode. So our flexibility regulator is one interesting factor, because every enterprise, regardless of size, has different application control requirements. Traditional application control solutions might not satisfy the needs of all the enterprises alike. If I choose high flexibility or monitor mode, all the applications present in this whitelisted group will be allowed to run smoothly in the mode, but also log collection will be enabled. The admin can monitor logs for as long as needed as reference to know when to shift these applications from the gray list to the white list, or if it is present in the white list, then it wouldn't be a problem. If I choose low flexibility or strict mode, this is a strict enforcement mode. By choosing this mode, none of the gray listed applications will be accessible to the user. Only the applications that are a part of the whitelist, which is the case in this scenario, will be allowed to run. Besides controlling applications, if you want to detect the presence of prohibited software, here's how you can do it. Now I choose the mode to be low flexibility or strict mode, wherein I want only the whitelisted applications to be executed on the endpoint, and you can deploy this policy. Now this way, while working from home, you ensure that only whitelisted applications run on all the remote endpoints. But if you still want to go ahead and detect the presence of blacklisted applications, here's what you can do. Click on Inventory tab, and you will have two options for application control under Inventory Management. One would be prohibiting software, and the other one would be blocking malicious executables. In terms of prohibiting software, what you can do is, I'm sorry, please just bear with me. In terms of prohibit software, very quickly, in terms of prohibiting software, you can enlist all the applications that need to be prohibited And upon each asset scan, if the blacklisted applications are present in the endpoint, then you will get a summary of all the blacklisted applications. Now, if you detect the presence of blacklisted applications, you can go ahead and very easily uninstall them automatically. If you uninstall them automatically, the users will be notified. And if the user insists on using the prohibited software, they can raise a request. Now, this request to use a blacklisted application can be either approved or denied by the IT administrator. If you want to block malicious executables, you can just provide the executable name or the hash value and ensure that that particular executable is blocked. Now that was about controlling applications. Moving on to the last scenario, complete endpoint lockdown. When end users try connecting to corporate endpoints, it is highly recommended to fortify this endpoint against all possible cyber attacks. With respect to applications, you can lock down an endpoint to a specific set of corporate applications, and you can also prevent the users from modifying the device settings. Usage of external devices is inevitable in every organization. Managing such external endpoints, external devices on top of the endpoint becomes cumbersome for an IT administrator. It is important to monitor the data that is copied to and from the USB device. That said, let's see how USB device management can be done. So let me very quickly just explain how you can, on top of managing your endpoints, how you can manage USB devices when remote endpoints, when remote workers plug and unplug external devices for business purposes. So please bear with me. Just give me one quick minute while I try to configure the server. If you have any questions, you can please keep them coming our way. Our expert panel would be happy to take your questions. Apologies for the delay. Apologies for the technical glitch. Currently, the server isn't accessible. So let me just proceed with the previous slide. So we were talking about managing USB devices and locking down the endpoint. So with respect to USB device management, what you can do is, under configurations, you can create a configuration for securing USB devices. You can completely block the usage of USB devices, or based on one particular device instance, you can choose to unblock the USB devices. This way, you can ensure that only trusted USB devices are used in your organization. Now, also from asset management point of view, it is important to ensure that the latest patches are deployed for all the applications, all the operating system, and the endpoints. That said, the final point would be about restricting administrative rights. Now, privileges within an organization are typically split between two basic levels of hierarchy: standard users and administrators. Domain administrators are usually given the highest level of privilege, with the ability to both modify and gain access to all standard user machines, whereas the local administrators have complete access to their particular endpoint and the data within it. Now imagine that a standard user needs to run an application that works only in administrator mode. Traditionally, enterprises would just provide this user with admin credentials or elevate the entire organization level privilege of that particular user. However, this would not only give them access to that application, but also to all the top level privileges the admin has, which is risky and creates a security loophole for attackers to exploit. So endpoint privilege management is the process of governing privileges so that admin privileges aren't excessively distributed among users. This will prevent the users from exploiting functions beyond their requirements, which is a common risk of elevating the entire user account privilege. This is how you can lock down an endpoint during remote work scenario. It is always better to keep an eye on the administrative privileges and restrict them. This brings us to the end of our scenarios. Moving on to the Desktop Central architecture. Desktop Central is a client-server model application and as of now, an on-premises solution wherein the server will be installed in your head office. The Desktop Central agent, a lightweight component, is installed on all the computers that you wish to manage using Desktop Central. Desktop Central agent aids in the completion of various tasks initiated from Desktop Central server. For instance, if you want to uninstall an application, the necessary settings can be configured for the corresponding agent on the server, while the agent will replicate these settings and execute it on the computer in which it is installed. This agent will update the status of these tasks back to the Desktop Central server. For managing mobile devices, any communication from DC is routed through the notification servers such as APNs, FCM, and WNS. The agent communicates with the server periodically to fetch the allotted tasks and updates the status back to the server. For managing branch offices, the distribution server is installed in one of the branch office computers. The distribution server communicates with Desktop Central server to fetch tasks for that particular branch office agents. In addition, the distribution server synchronizes with the Desktop Central server for missing patch details, which is then downloaded directly from the respective vendor's website. The downloaded patches are distributed across the branch office agents depending on the status of the missing patches on each computer. This status is communicated back to the Desktop Central server directly by the branch office agents. A network which does not have a connectivity to internet or limited connectivity is called as closed network. Even if you have a closed network architecture, you can still use Desktop Central to manage your endpoints. Desktop Central is also available in AWS Marketplace and Azure. In case you're looking to host Desktop Central in any one of our cloud server, you can use AWS or Azure for now. We spoke about how agent-server communication will take place. Now let's see when the agent-server communication happens. This time interval, wherein the agent communicates at least once with the server, is known as 90-minute refresh policy. Even if you have 90 missions or 900 missions or 9,000 missions, each Desktop Central agent will communicate with the Desktop Central server at least once every 90 minutes. That is how the agent-server communication works. Now that said, how do you manage the bandwidth, or how do you rather manage the load on Desktop Central server when all these agents communicate? The server has the intelligence to allot one specific time for each of these agents to communicate with the server. Now that was about our 90-minute refresh policy. Quickly moving on to the ports used by Desktop Central. Desktop Central uses HTTP port 8020 and HTTPS port 8380 predominantly. For the notification server that we just spoke about, it uses port TCP 8027 for communication. Now, depending on your requirement, there are various other ports that can be opened for stipulated functions to move on. That brings us to the end, the penultimate section, which is the scenarios and the solution. The first scenario is, now these are the common scenarios that our support technicians have been bombarded with ever since the work from home scenario started. We have Service Desk Plus Agent for asset management. How do these two products interact? If we are collecting inventory in Desktop Central, do we still need to scan the computers in SDP? Now, answering the first part of your question, every time an asset scan is performed, the asset details of all the endpoints are posted to STP's CMDB dynamically. This way, the IT technician can take a quick glance at the hardware and software. If you're collecting asset information through Desktop Central, you don't have to do the same thing using SDP for two reasons. One, the asset data posted by DC is way more accurate, and Desktop Central integrates with Service Desk Plus, which implies that the asset information will be available from Service Desk Plus console as well. The second scenario, how can we identify the security status of missions in my network? So the server is back and running. Let me quickly take you through the security details of all the computers. Click on inventory. When you click on inventory, from the left pane, click on computers. You would be able to view all the computers under this domain. So just click on any particular computer, just one computer, and you will have a tab called security. So this is how you can view the BitLocker status, the antivirus status, the firewall, and the missing patches. But if you say, I have so many endpoints to be managed and I would like to export a bulk report, you can do that as well. Click on the Reports tab and click on Inventory Reports. So under Inventory Reports, you will exclusively have a category for security reports, as you can see. So when you click on any of these reports, you would, let's say, firewall details, you would be able to export these details and view all the security details of your endpoints. Let's move on to the third scenario. Does the prohibit software feature block web browser plugins as well? Unfortunately, as of now, the prohibited software feature does not block the web browser plugins. Rather, we have the standalone browser security software that will help you in achieving way more than just restricting web browser plugins. We are talking about our Browser Security Plus product. As of now, the best part is Browser Security Plus is also available as an add-on to Desktop Central. The next scenario, shared directories with write access is a security threat. Can we identify them? Of course you can. Just like how I showed you under inventory, you can view the security details of one particular computer. You can also view the share details of that computer. Click on the computer name. Under System, you will have a tab for shares. This will let you see all the shares that is currently available for this computer. But again, if you want to generate a report, you can go to Reports and Inventory Reports, where you can export a report exclusively just for the share details. So this will help you to see all the share and the permission that each computer has. Now, we spoke about restricting admin privileges in the previous scenario. I think with the help of this report, you can make the job of John a lot easier. The next scenario, I want to identify the computers with local administrator accounts. Is that possible? Yes, it is possible. Yet again, you have a report for that. So let me take you through the inventory reports. Like I said, why do enterprises need asset management? One obvious reason is because you get a lot of predefined reports that you can export at the click of a button. So we were talking about users and computers that have default administrator account. So when you click on this report, you can view all the computers that have default administrator account. This is how you can identify the computers with local administrator accounts and default administrator accounts. The next scenario, Dropbox is installed at the user level and would like to get the list of computers that have it installed. How do I identify it? Now, one thing that we have to note over here is Dropbox is a user-specific software. So you can identify such applications. I think it's important for us to identify applications that are user-specific and that are installed on the endpoint. For you to be able to do this very easily, from inventory reports, you have user-specific report. So you can see all the applications that are list all the applications that are installed in your network, the number of installations. When you click on these installations, you can see who has configured them. So if it's Dropbox, you can just search for Dropbox and generate a report. It's as simple as that. The final scenario would be, I want to attach an invoice or other attachments to the computers to maintain records. Is this possible with asset management? Indeed, yes, this is possible. All you have to do is attach the invoice to the corresponding computer. So click on inventory and click on computers. So when you click on just one particular computer, you can view all the warranty details. But please also be noted that every time an asset scan is performed, the warranty details would be fetched automatically. On top of this, if you would like to upload or change the warranty details or upload an invoice, the details that are fetched automatically will be overwritten. So if you scroll down to the bottom of it, you will have the option to browse. So you can browse and upload, or one other way of doing it would be right from the console, you can just click on the edit option and you can edit the information. Now, another way of doing this would be add a custom field. This will make report generation a lot easier. When you click on custom field, you have input formats. So click on file upload. Now the file that I'm uploading here is the invoice. So provide the field name and upload the file. When you click on the icon that's present right next to the field, you would be able to browse and upload the invoice. So this is how you can attach an invoice or any other attachments for that matter. Let's wrap it up with a few frequently asked questions. Can we add the date and computers that have been purchased? This is to register the warranty dates. Like I said, warranty dates would be fetched automatically, but if you still want to go ahead and edit them manually, please be informed that the automatically fetched details will be overwritten. The next question, when you add a program to the prohibited software list, does it take all the version of software into account, or do I need to update the prohibited software list every time a new version is released? This is definitely a nice question. See, what you can do is you can group the software and you can ensure that every time a new version of that software is updated, it will automatically get added to the prohibited list. You don't have to manually add them every time there's a new version. The next question. In the inventory report of computers without specific software, how to specify filter criteria and schedule them? Let me show you how it can be done. So here we'll have to go for computers without specific software. From the reports tab, I will show you how you can schedule a report. So click on add schedule report. Provide a name, computers without a specific software. And choose inventory software, inventory reports. Under inventory reports, you can see that computers with or without a specific software is the available report. Now, when you select this report, you have other parameters to configure as well. What would be the report format? How would you want to be delivered? Who would be the recipients? And who would you want to send this to? You can also configure a scheduler as to when and how frequently you want this report to be generated automatically. Once you save, the scheduled report will be generated based on the scheduler that you have configured. In case of any issues with a driver in a mission, how can I identify the same? This is very important. So let me tell you how you can identify such issues with driver in a mission. Click on Inventory tab and click on Computers. So under each computer, like we discussed in the beginning, system details, the hardware, the software, the certificate details, the file details, security, USB audit, and the history details of USB devices would be gathered. Under one such tab, which is the hardware tab, you would be able to see all the details pertaining to the drivers or the hard disk, the monitors, any of it. So this is how you will be able to spot any issues with the driver in a machine. That brings us to the end of this session. If you found this session to be informative, please rate us on a scale of 1 to 5, where 5 being the top of the scale. And during times like this, please help your fellow mates by sharing a word about the free training on multiple social media platforms. Do not forget to tune in for our next training session on remote control, which is on the 29th of April. If you would like to schedule a personalized demo just to help our support technicians walk you through the product or help you with particular scenarios, you can access the link given at the bottom of the slide, or you can also confirm by commenting a yes on the chat. We would be happy to schedule a demo which is at your convenience. Thank you all for joining us today. If you have any questions, please keep them coming our way.